to Simpler. We are three pastors, husbands, and fathers on a journey to make life simpler by holding Jesus as the core for every belief and practice. This journey has shaped us to be more like Christ, freed us from the shame of failure, and encouraged us to a deeper love of our Lord and God. We invite you to join us in the discussions that have shaped and continue to shape our lives.
Yeah. First off, right at the bat, we're not going to talk about poop as much. I think that's the goal.
We'll poop.
I know, right? Second of all, this episode's going to be a little bit different for you guys. We're just going to get rocking and rolling because it's 1953, apparently. We're just going to jump right in. And with last time we did that, it was because it was the fifth Tuesday. This isn't even a fifth Tuesday. I'm mid-bite. And so I'm trying to swallow.
How's that Chick-fil-A sandwich?
It's good. It's a little bit cold, but it's good.
You're so happy it's not Sunday today that we're recording.
I know. What a good day, because I've always asked for a Chick-fil-A sandwich.
It's a funny story. A long time ago, we were recording a podcast on a Sunday, and I told Pierce I'd meet him at Chick-fil-A, and we'd ride out to the studio together. It's like 45 minutes from San Angelo. And he texted me and said, "Hey, would you grab me a chicken sandwich before I get there? I'm going to be a little late." And I texted back and said, "It's Sunday." And he texted back and goes, "Okay, but can you just go in and get me a chicken sandwich?" And I texted back and said, "It's Sunday." And he's like, "Why can't you get me a chicken sandwich?"
Give me a sandwich.
And I was like, "Dude, they're closed on Sunday."
Stop making this more difficult than it needs to be. Just give me a chicken sandwich.
Go in there and fry one up.
Yeah, come on, man. So anyway, so it's not a fifth Tuesday. It's not anything like that. But we've had some pretty, I guess, more heavy episodes this month. And Ryan, you had said that you'd wanted to. We've been at this for a couple of years now, and we haven't really had an episode where we've talked about ourselves, I guess. What's the better way? What's the better way to
introduce
say
ourselves?
Yeah, I think we're into this now, nearly 2 years. May will be 2 years.
Yeah.
And I think we're getting new listeners all the time, and I think it would be helpful for people to kind of get to know us a little bit better.
Yeah.
I know we do have some people who are like, man, I feel like I get to know you guys really well, but I think it'd just an episode dedicated to, hey, here's kind of who we are and how we tick. And so, yeah.
I feel like we should go oldest first.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So my name's Ryan, and that's about all there.
Hi, Ryan.
So,
Hi, Ryan.
yeah. So one of the things that I said to the guys is like, let's just share a little bit about who we are, what makes us tick, what God's done in our lives, that kind of thing. And so, I grew up in Midland, Texas. Grew up going to church. Have three younger sisters. One's 3 years younger than me. I have a sister who's 12 years younger than me, and a sister that's nearly 16 years younger than me. All same mom and dad. I know people who have that story with like separate families or step siblings or whatever, but all full-blooded sisters. And became a Christian when I was 3. Knew I wanted to preach at 4. Was a goofy kid. I've probably told this story before. I mentioned it a few weeks ago in church again too, just alluded to it. I'm waiting for more questions about it. But I was the kid, in 4th grade on the playground that would get all the dry grass from them having mowed and make a giant nest and pretend to be a pterodactyl.
Dude, side note, have you ever seen behind the scenes video of Benedict Cumberbatch playing the dragon in The Hobbit? So how crazy he is?
Yeah.
And so there's a meme I saw the other day where it's like, my mom told me to go play with the kid next door. And this is the kid next door.
Yeah.
And it was him just running around screaming.
Yep.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I was that kid. I was pretty goofy.
It's a really nice way to put it.
Yeah. I think in 3rd grade, that was about 4th grade. In 3rd grade, I pretended I was a metal detector on the playground. I'd walk around and start beeping, and I'd go, "Oh, there's something here," and I'd reach down and always find something, a pull tab from a Coke can or something like that. Sometimes change, and people were like, "Wow, you really are a metal detector," because there's always some sort of piece of metal in the kids' playground, But I was that kid. Really, probably about the time I was 15, 16, entered into a really severe depression. Lived in that until I was about 25. Still wanted to honor God through high school and college, but didn't really have a lot of emotional resources to do that well. I was just kind of barely hanging on. I was kind of just barely functioning, and spent a lot of time in bed, probably about 18 hours a day in bed there for the last few years of that in college. And went to school on scholarship and lost my scholarship because my grades all fell. And yeah, just crud. Like it was just kind of one thing after the other. Had a good friend in high school named Brian, and we still talk every now and then, and he's actually supported my ministry, and it's been really neat. He was a really good friend in high school and a good friend for a little bit in college. Made some really good friends when I turned 20, Ryan Layden and Scott Donahoe, who are both still in ministry, who were really instrumental for me in encouraging me and just being a good friend to me and kind of walking me through those later years of depression and really helping me to just refocus on Christ. Awesome dudes, really cool guys, both super smart, both of them right now. So they're both a year younger than me. Their birthday is just 3 days apart. They've been friends since middle school, but they're a year younger than me, almost exactly, like just a few days different. And they're both back in school now because Donahoe really wants to. He would like to be some sort of biblical professor at some point. Like he knows that the church ministry he's in isn't where he's going to be forever, but he'd like to be a professor at some point. So he's going back and taking Greek and Hebrew again. and then Ryan, who lives in Australia, who's a pastor in Australia, super cool story about that. But he's been there now for like, golly, I want to say it's been 10 years. And they ended up there because his son, they lived in San Antonio. His son was doing a middle school report. I know this is supposed to be about me. Never mind. But Layden, cool story. Ask me about it sometime. And he's gone back to school virtually online with New Orleans Baptist Seminary, and he's continuing his education. And they're just, man, always pressing to know God more. Anyway, really good friends of mine, really shaped me a lot. Moved to San Angelo. Micah and I became friends. It's been nearly 20 years now, and that friendship has shaped me a lot. And so for me, I feel really blessed because I've had some really amazing godly people in my life that have shaped me, and I hope that I've shaped them too. I think I have. I think that it's kind of been a mutual relationship, a mutual friendship. And so I've always wanted to be a preacher, have enjoyed ministry now for 27 years plus a year or two, a little bit, I guess. And met Michelle when I was 31. We met on MySpace, and she messaged me one day, the day before my birthday in 2006. I messaged her back. She had already decided not to message me back because she felt my first message to her was rude. And so I messaged her again the next day. And so she took a chance on me. We had our first date a week later. The day that I met Michelle, Micah, you were there. You and your wife were there because
I was there.
We were doing a Disciple Now in Mertzen.
In Mertzen.
Yeah, where we are recording this podcast.
Not at the same place, but the same time.
Not the same place, yeah. Same area. And I told Micah, I said, I'm going to meet this girl today. And Micah was like, cool. And then the four of us had dinner that night. You and Cammie and me and Michelle had dinner that night at
Buffalo Wild Wings. Yeah, I was shocked that you came with.
Yeah,
with
first
her.
date, and so
you were. It was funny because you're always insecure, and you came in that night. You walked into Buffalo Wild Wings like a king. You
nice.
were like,
yeah.
It
was just good, man. Like it was just good. Like
it was. I told Cammie, I was like, okay, this must be really good because look at him. He's like, chest out.
I had some swagger maybe for the first time. Maybe the only time in my life.
I think you brought a cane in with you. Were like,
it just reminded me of Kramer in a Seinfeld episode. But anyway, we were looking at rings, she and I, 2 weeks later. We were engaged a couple weeks after that, married a few months after that. We've got two awesome boys, a 7th grade boy, Asher, and a 5th grade boy, Riker. And so like, I just feel really blessed. I feel really blessed that I get to do what I'm doing in ministry with two of my very closest friends, Pierce and Micah. Pierce and I have been friends for about a decade now. And it's just fun. It is really fun to be able to do this life with people I enjoy. Micah would say it, Micah does say it to me this way a lot. It's not something he would say, it's something he does say, that I think very much in a box. And I'm really working hard to be a little more broad-minded, but
to make it more clear, you're really good within that box. You function very, very, very well inside that box.
I see a system that works.
Yeah.
And I do that system to death.
Really well.
I just have a difficult time realizing there are other systems that work.
Well, I think
think
it's more so like your tendency isn't to see the other systems. So I don't even think it's like a negative. I think it's that you don't see it. You know what I mean? Like,
but I'm trying to grow. I love to read. I love to read, and I read a lot of books about the mind and the brain and thinking and functioning and stuff that maybe a lot of people would find boring. There's a few of you that'd be like, man, that's really cool stuff. One of my favorite books of all time, Thinking Fast and Thinking Slow. Another book, How Not to Be Wrong. I loved that one, The Power of Mathematical Thinking. I think I mentioned this a few weeks ago. I think with Micah, you and I have said and agreed probably the greatest playoff football game ever, and maybe the greatest football game ever between the Bills and the Chiefs.
Yep.
I'm a Chiefs fan. I'm a Chiefs fan by default. I'm a Texas Tech student. That's where I went to school before they kicked me out. And I went to Texas Tech. I'm a fan of Mahomes, so I'm a fan of the Chiefs. And I was texting back and forth with Micah during that game going, oh my goodness. And like a few weeks before that, because I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, a few weeks before that, like a couple months before that, when the Spider-Man trailer dropped, Pierce and I were texting back and forth all night and speculating. And I was like, I have two of the best friends ever, because like I can nerd out with one on football and nerd out with the other on Spider-Man. And it's awesome. And so like I'm kind of both of those things, like the Spider-Man guy and the football guy.
We're probably not going to get in the pterodactyl nest with you.
No,
Probably not. Yeah.
I'm probably not going to create the pterodactyl nest.
Steven will do it.
Nice, Steven.
I'm there, brother. Let's do it.
Let's go right now.
You're a good man, dude. You're
He's got this bottle of Steven's Essence that'll keep you
Yeah, that's right,
too,
that's
as a
right.
pterodactyl.
And and so
Christmas gifts.
I love to write. I love to think. I want to. I think I got told so much that I was stupid, partly because when I was in kindergarten, first and second grade, I had a lot of seizures. I was on a lot of drugs that really messed with my head, and it did make me slower. I couldn't process things as quickly. And so my first grade teacher told my parents that I was mentally handicapped. I needed to be in special education.
Was that because of the pterodactyl thing or something?
That was fourth grade. That was a different thing altogether. I don't have the excuse of my seizure medicine for that.
That was all me, baby.
I am part of the reason, Micah, and you've known me the longest in this room, and so like you've known me longer than my wife. So see if this resonates, because you say I work really well within my box. For me, part of the reason I operate within the box is because it's safe for me. Like I can understand it. And I like being able to understand my environment. So if I can understand my environment, I can work really well in it. And so I do things that I'll give you an example really quickly. And I've been going 10 minutes. I've promised myself I'd only do this for 15. But I think pretty logically and sometimes pretty unemotionally. And so one of my favorite examples is, it was the dumbest thing that I've ever said, but I just didn't think differently about it. So, and I've mentioned this before, I think, in here, but a few weeks before Michelle and I got married, keep in mind, we had dated for 2 weeks before we looked at rings. A few weeks later, we were engaged, and we were married 5 months after that. So like the whole thing was 7 months. Few weeks before we got married, she said, "Do you think you would cry if I died?" And I said, "No, but I don't cry."
Nice.
Yeah. And she goes, "You wouldn't cry if I died?" And I was like, "Well, no. I'm 31. Logically, I haven't dated anybody in 7 years. You and I have only been together a few months. Like, I would probably, I'd be sad, but I'd be okay." And
You're still married, right?
yeah. Well, the
Not
better
after this
question is,
episode, yeah.
did she marry me? Like, a few weeks later, she still married me.
Oh, this is you're engaged.
This is 3 weeks before we got married.
Yeah.
And in my head, I'm just like, well, that's just the truth. Like that's logical, right?
Mm-hmm.
So to make it worse, 2 days before we got married,
Yes.
this is the worst one. 2 days before we got married, somebody said something, and I can't remember if Michelle was present, but Michelle got looped into the story. But somebody said something like, "Isn't Michelle the most beautiful girl in the world?" And I said, "Well, no, but I'm not the most handsome guy in the world."
Yes.
Yeah.
That's my favorite thing
Yeah.
I've ever heard. That's the best thing ever.
And so they
Is
said,
that what you named the painting of you two? Like,
right? So
Plain.
in my
two very
head,
ordinary people.
in my head, I didn't do anything wrong because I'm thinking mathematically, like,
Yeah, there's
I
no
know
way.
that objectively, I am not the best looking guy in the world. We're not the best looking couple in the world.
And neither is she.
And the person who's asking me this is asking about my affection for Michelle. But that's not how my brain interpreted the question. My brain interpreted the question just from a pure mathematical question. And does that make sense?
The way I hear
it
this
makes
though is
yes.
like business minded coming from me. Like if I was like teaching somebody how to sell and like you walked in and we had this conversation, I'd be like, oh, there's no hope.
Yeah, right.
Why do I
Like,
need this? No, you don't.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't
need it.
That's exactly why I'm a terrible salesman, because I'm like,
Horrible.
you don't need any of
you
this.
don't
Just let me
need
take
it.
care
Yeah.
of that with your painting.
So I look at, and I was like, well, honey, like, this is 2 days before we get married.
Duh, don't you get it,
And
Michelle?
I'm like, do you think I'm the most handsome person in the world? She goes, yes. And I was like, no, you don't.
No, you don't. You lie.
I was like, you love me and I love you, but empirically, come on. Like, I am not. And so, like, in my head, it's just,
It's funny that you were reasoning on an objective standard on a subjective topic.
right.
True.
This
Yeah,
is the
but-
box.
But,
Just a couple
but
of
still,
sixes.
You
like, anyway.
saw a subjective question as an objective truth.
I know, but I'm just like, there's, anyway, that's how I exist. And Micah, I have a home.
She said yes.
Yeah, she did.
And they're still married.
And here's the truth. Like, she told me that both of those instances hurt her feelings. But today, in retrospect, neither of those things hurt her feelings, because she laughs like that I'm that way. That, like, she knows I love her and she knows that I find her beautiful and attractive. That wasn't in my head what the question was.
Right.
Yeah.
If the person had said, do you think Michelle's gorgeous? Yes. I have no problem with that. Is Michelle the love of your life? Yes.
Yeah.
You know, but like, are you going to cry? Probably not, because I don't cry. You know, my dad mocked me for like 6 years every time I cried as a boy. So I've just learned to shut it off, you know, like, yes, I'm dysfunctional and weird. But one of the other things that I do is Micah calls it my mind palace or my memory palace. I can't call it that because I'm a huge fan of the BBC Sherlock, and my mind palace isn't anything like his. So that's my kickback against that phrase. But in my head, I have this beautiful 2-story
Memory
house.
palace.
The upstairs is only accessible at the end of a long hallway. The upstairs is only accessible by an elevator. You get up there, and when you step off the elevator, to the right is my office. So those are all the things I have to do. I have notes on the blackboard and also on the dry erase board. I have 2 wall-length blackboards that I make notes on, and they slide up and down like in a big lecture hall, you know, in a university. So there's one that you can pull down and you can write on it and you can push it back
Nice.
up. I have a safe underneath my desk. That's for things that no one else needs to know about. I'm the only one that knows the combination.
Like
to it.
Ada. That's where you keep all your Ada.
Yeah.
Sure.
And then at the end of the night, and then across the hall on the other side, across the hall is my art studio, where all of my commissions are and all the things I need to do for artwork are in there. And at the end of the night, when I'm laying in bed trying to go to sleep, I shut and lock both doors. I go and punch in the key code at the elevator and drop the key card in, and it goes down to the first floor in a lockbox. So I can't get access to the second floor again until the morning.
Mm-hmm.
It's a timed alarm. And I go downstairs and I walk down the long hall, windows on both sides of this gorgeous mountain home. And I go out the back door and I grab an inner tube. It's next to the wood pile. And I put on my swim trunks and I get in the river and I float down the river in the sunshine until I fall asleep.
Somebody please give this guy $100 million.
And
You know what people
want to see
to
this.
build the house.
Well, you know
Yeah.
what? You know what people
I
like
wanna
this
see
normally
this.
do? They count cards and make millions of dollars. from
Yeah.
casinos.
so
You're going to have to give it to him because he's not going to sell anything in there.
You don't actually need this, man.
That room is full of art.
That's so God's done a lot in my life. I've had great friends. I have an incredible wife. I have incredible kids, and I am weird and quirky, and that's me. All right, who's next?
Nice. Sure, I can go. I don't know
How to follow that?
I don't.
You weren't a pterodactyl.
I'm not nearly as entertaining as that.
That's not true. That's not true at all.
I'm really not, man.
There's so much great about you.
That's not what I said. I said I'm not nearly as entertaining.
You're right. True.
I didn't build a nest in the grass.
I don't know.
Nah.
Yeah. Anyway,
It's entertaining.
it is entertaining.
The phrase was entertaining.
Yeah.
No, I mean, as far as testimony type stuff is concerned, I grew up in a stereotypically on paper Christian household, but really very far away from a Christian household.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I was taught Christian truths that I still will piggyback off of, but I had a lot of unlearning to do. What I mean by that is that the scripture was taught, maybe not with the right heart, but the words were there. I was still going to VBS. I was still going to church. We still said our prayers at night. We still did a lot of those things. That's what I mean by Christian home. What I mean by very much different was that my dad came out of the closet when I was 11 years old. And what I learned later from my mom was actually that he had left before when I was 9 with the same thing. And so, or when I was 5. So that was an ongoing thing throughout my dad's whole life, was that he would have said before the divorce that he had struggled with being gay, but then after coming out that he was just embracing who he was after coming out. And so, my dad, who I idolized and put up on a pedestal as being this great man of God because he was a worship pastor, he was a teaching pastor, he was a youth pastor. He had all these different roles in the church growing up. He was somebody who went to Hardin Simmons in Abilene. We lived all over the place. Gosh, he went to school at so many different places throughout Texas. And this story, forgive me for you guys listening and watching, is going to be all over the place. But so he went to school all over the place. We were involved in all these different churches, but my parents were really quick to get involved, like to get a title. And because he had these different degrees and because he was ordained, he was quick to get a high up title. So he was a youth pastor. He was a worship minister. He was a teaching pastor for a while. And I held him in that high regard. And then when I was 11 years old is when my dad left, when he came out of the closet, and I had a lot of resentment at that time of my dad leaving. Around the same time was whenever I was in a really bad accident. I was in a really bad 4-wheeler accident where I should have died and I didn't. And so around that whole year, I remember it was just a lot of questioning God, of like, why would God allow my dad to leave my family? Why would God allow me to go through so much physical pain and allow my mom to go through so much anguish of her husband leaving and her son to almost die? And why would God do all these things in life? And throughout, from about 11 to about 15, God really taught me, I'm God because of who I am, not because of who other people are. I am God because of how I proclaim myself to be. And sometimes I may use other people. The truths that you were taught from the scripture, those remain true, even though the mouths who taught it abandoned me. Those truths that were said in scripture, those remain to be true, even though the hearts behind it weren't necessarily 100% behind me. That's not to say anything bad about my mom. That's strictly my dad. My mom loves Jesus. I don't want to dive in a whole deep about my mom. My mom, I believe, loves the Lord. I believe she was dealt a really hard hand with everything with my dad. She strived to be a submissive wife in the midst of all of that. And it was very, very, very hard and very, very, very rough. And then did what she could for the best of her family in the midst of that. And so by the time I was 14 or 15, that rolled around, I was the person that was like, okay, God, I'm going to try to follow after you. But I don't know. I really, as somebody who has the piece of paper that says I was saved when I was 7, and then did the different camps that like had these different moments in life that were like, okay, God, I'm going to follow after you because you are who you say you are, at these different moments of like these different intense questioning God moments at 11, and then learning from 11 to 15. I don't know if I was truly following Jesus until I was 18. Like, I don't know. You've talked about, Ryan, before. You probably talked about it on here. You've talked about celebrating your Christian birthday. I don't know I have no idea when my Christian birthday is. I know now I'm following Christ. I know that when I was 18, I was following Christ. There's probably some bits in between there that I could say I was following Christ, but I don't know if that was like part of Jesus, like calling me to him. Like, I don't really know about the bits and pieces of that, but I don't, and I'm not saying you're saying this by any means. My pride isn't in a date. My boast is in the Lord.
Yeah.
I know for certain who I am today because of what Christ has accomplished.
Which is one of my favorite things that Micah has done with people. Like I've heard you have that conversation with people, Micah, where you're like, does it matter if
and
you were
it's
8 or 18?
Like what you know today is that you believe that.
And that's
You believe there's enough evidence to say that Jesus was resurrected from the grave.
Absolutely. Took me a second,
Wow.
but absolutely.
That'll be it.
Did it just get a little bit shady in here or what?
Keep Christ's core.
Man, we missed you, dude. We're glad you're back.
Yeah, I know. I'm so happy.
It's been a minute.
It has been. So yeah, I think that that's actually doing life with you, Mike, has helped shape that mentality. So I don't know if there definitely wasn't any guilt, but there was a lot of like, for a while, that's a lot of what people want to hold on to is like, when were you saved? And so I haven't heard that in a long time, I don't think. And that's probably just because I've gotten older and I'm in ministry. So people don't feel the need to ask me that question. But I feel like I was asked that a whole bunch. And so I was like, well, 7. And then I would think about all the hardships I went through when I was like 12. And so I was like, well, I bet the Lord really got a hold of me at 12. So I'd be like, well, 12. And so I would just throw that out there. And they'd be like, well, I was baptized when I was 7. I should probably go back to 7. Well, 7. And then I'd be like, well, it wasn't really till college that I was really following the Lord. 18. So then I was just all over the place. But then it was probably, so when I say doing life with Micah, it was the year I turned 21. So it was the summer of 2011. Was when I was 3rd string bassist for Micah. I was down the list of the calls of playing bass for Micah. And yeah, so that was,
You were first string.
Then I was 1st string. Yeah. So I think you had 3 or 4 different bassists that summer.
I think you were the 3rd that summer.
I was the 3rd that summer. So those 2 before me couldn't do that last camp, and that's what it was. And so one of those guys had recommended me, and then through us connecting that and through me doing a pretty crappy job for the first couple sets.
That wasn't your fault. To stand on a stage like that in front of like 1,100 people for your first time ever.
And then,
at least you got the call.
And then for John Wiley, I know, right? Then for John Wiley to play it 10 times too fast.
You were still like a pro wakeboarder.
I know, right? Exactly. For John Wiley to be like, I'm going to play this.
Oh, it was
as fast as possible.
That was a nightmare. This is
wildest 84 beats per minute you ever heard.
And this is pre-click track. Like we weren't using click tracks at all. It was
so I'm like,
I wouldn't have came.
just trying to go like, please just go as fast as possible. No click. So my fingers like locked up. It was wild, man. So anyway, I ended up being the first bassist called for you, and I wasn't going. I don't know. The 456 was a thing, but I wasn't going to the 456. Y'all started in 09, yeah. I wasn't going to the 456 yet, but I was at the D-Nows. I was at the camp. Me and you were having a lot of those conversations through traveling. And before that, so I should rewind a little bit. Before that, I was involved in a lot of Christian bands. What I was gonna be a Christian musician. Like I loved Christian metalcore, Christian hardcore. I wanted to scream for Jesus, and man, I loved every minute of it. I still love it. What's funny is like this past Christmas, I was like, shows are back, baby, because COVID's been like ruining live shows forever. But this past year, they do an annual Christmas show in San Angelo, and I was like, I've been in a band that's not really broken up. We just haven't played in 2 years. So it's like we're broken up, but we never did the official breakup. So I'm like, let's just do it, man. Let's just play the show. But all of us were everywhere for Christmas, so it just wouldn't have happened. But part of me is like, let's go do it. So I love it. I love screaming. I love the energy. I love the live feel. But I love it as a venue for reaching the lost. Like, golly, like it's just being in that environment. That not only for me is a place where it is so much raw emotion that can be poured out. So like at this point in my life where I know where I stand regarding Christ by now, I know where I stand following after Jesus, where I can pour out all the crap that I've been through regarding my dad. I can pour out all of these deep truths that I'm now learning in regards to who Christ is, in regards to the scripture, in regards to how the Spirit's at work in my life. And I can just pour out this raw passion that is real into a already raw and passionate music scene. I can just pour that on the page and then scream my heart out. Like, and then these kids respond to it. Like, that's super dope. And then to a place where like I'm already personality wise, I love to be very personable and just hang out. And that's what this is. We're just going to go hang out for 4 hours in a place and lose our hearing. Like, this sounds awesome. And then I get to scream for 30 minutes of it. And then I can sell t-shirts and you guys are just coming hanging out at my table and we can just chill. Like, this is just a dream come true. This is amazing. There's no money involved. I mean, if you got actually paid well, then that would be the dream come true part of it. Cause then there's every aspect of it. But me and a lot of the just people that I got really close to, like, shout out to Caleb, shout out to Mark, like these people that were 100% peers, like people that we were coming into learning who Jesus is and Christ was establishing this foundation. And we were like, who are we? Like, who are we as brothers in Christ? Who are we as sinners made saints? Like, who are we? Like, and just discussing the word together, figuring out what community looks like, because we had grown up in this stereotypical type church thing for so long. And now we're beginning to actually see what community of believers looks like as people who are coming to band practice and actually talking about what we're learning in the scripture and talking about maybe a new song that we heard and actually saying, like, well, is this biblical? Like, what's actually going on here? Like, talking about these things, having these hard conversations. And then bringing that into trying to be a light to the lost in our community, may it be in San Angelo. We played shows in Abilene, in the Dallas area, in the Lubbock area. We went up to New Mexico. We went up to Oklahoma. Like, we played a lot just in the South area. And then that bleeds into time with Micah and bleeds into that ministry aspect of it, well, playing worship in Disciple Nows and camps and different conferences and stuff like that. And then that timeline bleeds into getting to know Ryan with starting to come to the 456, and then the band stuff started to die out. And I thought, what am I going to do with my life? Well, you know what? I want to keep doing ministry. So you know what I have to do? I got to go to seminary. Well, if I go to seminary, I got to finish college. And I'm a college dropout because I wanted to be in a band. And you started the discipleship program, the 710. So I thought, you know what? Well, if I'll intentionally kind of learn more about the scripture, intentionally learn more of this kind of in an academic type setting.
My success rate with the 710, because there were 4 of you guys and 1 virtual. So my success rate right now is 20%.
It's me.
It's you.
That's right. You're looking at him.
Well, if we're talking about investing, I mean, that's dope.
That is true.
That's true. All right.
It's a pretty good return.
You're my Ada.
I'm right. It's the sweetest thing anybody could have ever said to me.
I don't know what he means because 8 is really far down right now.
I know. It's actually a very sad thing somebody could have said.
It's the potential.
There you go.
So between playing bass with you, Micah, between joining the 710, like establishing a relationship with you guys, like this kind of going from a lot of like a peer basis of community and now actually entering into a community where now I'm learning under kind of both of you guys, where I actually feel, I mean, and I had Justin Smith, if you're listening, Justin, shout out to you. And I think really just Justin from Grace Temple that I was learning under, and now kind of transitioning to learning under you guys. Cause there was a lot of lag over there. I'm not going to go into the details, but transitioning to learning under you guys. And now this relationship kind of being built up into pastor and now into an overseer role at the 456, where we're now peers in that role. Like that's an interesting transition to make. Like that's not normal. I feel like to kind of, I guess it's normal to hire within for like some companies to kind of build up that way, but very interesting. And it's what we have is not normal.
No.
And I think you guys know that more than anybody because you guys have traveled.
Is it because I'm not normal?
Yeah, we got a weird pterodactyl on the team.
How many churches can say that?
Exactly.
I feel like there's some Photoshop stuff coming up for future posts.
What
is a pterodactyl and Ryan having?
Thank you so much. Yeah. What's really interesting though is that you guys really, really understand the not normalcy of it. I mean, you've worked at a local church in town for a while. Micah, excuse me. I'm gesturing to Micah for those listening. But both of you guys have traveled and just kind of like been involved with other church staffs and church teams for a long time. And while I have traveled with you, Micah, since 2011, and kind of witnessed some of those teams, I haven't been as involved. My core involvement of being a part of a church staff is the 456.
Mhm.
And so while I've witnessed a lot of things and I know cognitively that like what we have isn't normal, I don't necessarily know the full weight of how not normal it is. But I see that it really isn't. I'm so grateful for that.
Not normal in a good way.
Yeah,
we would
absolutely.
say, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. The community that we have, the comfortability that we have, and kind of where we are. And so I know that I kind of,
Legitimate friendship.
oh, absolutely. Yeah. And so I know that I kind of just did kind of the testimony thing. What makes me tick? I like Jurassic Park and Harry Potter. I like heavy music. I'm really thankful of where we are. I didn't even mention Hannah in my testimony, but she's cool too.
That's his wife.
We got up to the 456. So we're in the time now.
I mean, I think
met Hannah.
I want to tell this story. So Pierce is
yeah.
doing student ministry, and he married one of the college students.
Yep.
Absolutely. There was a scandal. Yeah. So we're at the 456. One of the students, actually, yeah, both of y'all have a really good perspective of that because, you wanted me and Hannah to get together, but you didn't think it would happen.
Oh,
Gosh,
no.
I guaranteed you.
Gosh, no.
Ryan gave me the Ryan Douglas guarantee.
We got two references now.
that they would not say, because I called Ryan one day and I was like,
I think
I
something's
was like, dude, I
happening.
think something's going on between Pierce
I was
and Hannah.
like,
He was
nope.
like, absolutely not. She would never date him.
Yeah, see, because like a year earlier, I'd really wanted them to, and I just
You know what's
never
funny
saw
about
anything
that?
brew, so I
Right.
was just like, it's
Yeah.
done. It's
Well, there
not gonna
wasn't anything
happen.
there. Yeah.
You know what's hysterical about that though is a year earlier, Hannah and I just talked about this on our anniversary trip a month ago. That we talked about that year point earlier, and that's funny that you wanted it then too because me and her ended up going to lunch alone when like 5 other people were supposed to go, and then she was like, "Well, can I get a ride? My car's at so-and-so." And I was like, "Oh yeah, for sure. We're gonna meet all those people there," and then they weren't there, so it was just lunch with me
Y'all
and
had
her.
a date.
And so she was like, "This is the best day of my life." Like she was like, "It's happening. It's finally happening." And so what's funny is you were like, "Yeah, like you wanted something a year earlier." She was like, "It's finally going to happen." And then not 2 weeks later, I started dating a different girl, and she was like, "I hate everything."
See, and that's why I thought, I was like, well, that's done. Because see, Hannah, when she first started coming, she was one of the college girls that Michelle and I reached out to and had over for dinner. And then
Yeah.
she came over every week for dinner for a year.
Didn't y'all watch a show together?
Yeah, she came over for dinner. We'd watch the show together and hang out.
Yeah.
And so like she sent us Christmas cards from home that year.
She
and
was
then
like your adopted daughter.
yeah, she was.
Y'all are still saved that way in her phone.
One of her biggest concerns coming to college was how much she was going to miss her mom and dad, and so she felt like God had provided Michelle and me to be
Mhm.
kind of those surrogates for her.
Because you're old.
Yeah, and so like I loved her, and I loved you, and I was like, how cool would that be?
Yeah.
And then the longer it went on, I was like, well, that's never going to happen.
Never-
and
I'm
Micah was like, it's totally going to happen. I was like, I guarantee you, it's not.
It's never gonna
Yeah, I
happen.
totally wish
Should
we
have taken that.
I wish
bet.
we had bet something
Should
on
have
it.
bet something. What's so great about
I
that?
guarantee you.
I'm so thankful that the amount of time did pass because Hannah really needed to grow. I mean,
Throw it on her.
No. Like,
Wow.
no, I'm getting there.
She's not the most gorgeous woman in the world, and I'm not crying. Pierce is like, my wife needs to grow.
You know what's funny is we've already talked about it. She knows. I mean, he's calling his wife ugly to her face. And
Hey, come on, man.
I'm just joking.
Come on.
I'm just joking.
Do you want me to tell you what's in the safe under my desk in my
Is it a gun? Please don't. Is it the labeled for Pierce?
No, man. There's a red folder in there.
Oh, is it? Oh, I know what it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway,
It's all the dirty pictures of my wife in my head.
I got you. Well, it's not dirty. It's pure.
I know, it's marriage.
It's marriage. But you open it up, it shines gold.
Okay, wait.
And the pterodactyl costume.
Sorry.
That's right. And the
Sorry,
pterodactyl
Pierce,
costume.
hang on a
For when
second.
things get a little crazy.
Hang on a second.
Why is it in
your,
a safe?
Your memory palace, nobody goes in the room. Why are those not plastered all over the wall? Why is it in a safe in a folder?
Because
someone
I'm
breaks
concerned
in.
that somebody could go in.
Oh my gosh.
Like there's locks on the
What?
door.
I mean, we're
Somebody
entering
give
into the
this man
metaverse. I
$100
mean, what?
million.
What? Someone could just spend the money.
I won't even be
Make it happen.
No, it's not anything I'm embarrassed about, but it's
I need
like
to circle back to me
Okay.
insulting my wife.
in my brain,
would just let it go.
there's this private
What are y'all talking
section,
about?
Yeah.
and the way that private section in my brain, it's not just those things
So
that are
like
in there.
someone could like plug in and get into your room.
Yeah, so all of my private things are in that safe under my desk in my like
Wiener schnitzel.
Moving on.
So anyway, back to me insulting my wife.
Yeah.
So I think I had a ton of growth to do as well. 100%. 100%.
And
But
the podcast ended that
I know.
day.
So like rewinding a little bit. So like with Hannah, I think Hannah was at a place maturity wise that we could have
All right,
completely
Mike
dated.
Tyson.
I know, right? We could have 100% dated. But we talked about her just like being socially awkward. And like even when me and her hung out alone that day, like I was just like like during it, I remember being like, "Oh, she's really cool."
You know
like
what? I remember that
enjoy-
because
Well,
she
you had to
would
wait.
like.
You had to wait for her to turn 18.
Yeah.
Oh, come
Yeah,
on.
she hadn't graduated yet. So I was like, it's really awkward for me to hang out with a minor by
weird.
herself. Yeah.
Because I remember you calling. I remember you calling me and being like, "Hey, dude, was this okay? Like I had lunch with Hannah by
Yeah.
myself. Like, was this okay?" I was like,
And she was like
"Fine."
21. Yeah.
it's
Like it was not
fine.
that big of a deal. Yeah. So me and her have talked about that. But what's so funny is I think that there was also that level for her where she was like, well, it's not going to happen. And then it also gave her this confidence the next like 10 months later where she was just like, oh, we're going for it. Let's do it. Now I'm going to take my chance. Whereas before, I don't know, there was like that time needed to happen for both of us. Whereas for me, I had a lot of areas to grow up in like legit areas. And she, I just think needed that little boost of confidence that I think that may have been the thing that was
made
for
your
her.
relationship what it is. It made it strong and healthy.
100%.
Yeah.
And it's been so great to be able to see her grow to who she is. And now we're able to kind of just as a unit build a house, build a home together. We have Riley together.
Is it in your
Is
head?
it in your head?
Yeah. We have a memory house together, a memory palace together. Yeah.
You actually have 3 houses.
I know, man. Well, no, we just have 2 houses.
You just sold the other one. That's right.
One's a memory house, yeah. So yeah, man. So who I am. So life's great. You ended that way. I got a wife. I got a kid. She is almost 2, and not my wife. My wife is 26 this year, which sounds so young, right? It's 26 this year, and my daughter is 2, and I am 32 this year.
Yep.
Those are our ages. And I expect
So
birthday
you were a
presents.
senior in high school when she was in 6th grade?
I know. I made that joke at my wedding rehearsal dinner. And I should not have made that joke because her whole family, who didn't like me yet, her whole family just goes, ugh. And like, you could like audibly hear the groans. And I was like, well, I hope you guys enjoy that steak. We'll talk to you guys later. I hated it. Yeah. So anyway, so I don't know. Is that good for me?
Sure.
Cool.
I mean, I guess.
It was perfect.
I said Harry Potter, Jurassic Park, and Jesus. So I think we're good. and music.
2
Yeah.
for 2
And
on calling
Hannah.
our spouse is ugly.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah.
Dang.
We know.
This is such poor representation here.
Four.
I didn't even say ugly. I just said
It's not gonna happen
she
on
needs
this
to
one, I
grow
guarantee
up.
It's really
All
all I need to say about me.
That's right.
Matchless Photography. Thank you for your sponsorship of Dr. Pepper.
Colin.
Thanks, Colin. Andrea.
I was introduced to Dr. Pepper when I was, I think, 10 or 11.
This is all about Micah. Everything's going to be Dr. Pepper.
Right.
His
I used
memory
to
palace
do-
is Dr. Pepper.
I used to
Oh,
do
there's a story you
the.
gotta tell.
I used to do the suicide where you mix all the drinks at the fountain.
Yeah.
And then one day someone introduced me to Dr. Pepper, and I was like,
Never going
That's
back.
it.
never going back, never going
That's
back.
it.
I grew up in a great house. Both my parents were believers and loved Jesus. I got saved. I would probably say I put my faith in Jesus at 5. I remember having a conversation with my mom. And it's so vivid because they were having some work done on the plumbing and they had like jackhammered the floor up to get to the sewer line. So there was this giant hole in my parents' room. And I remember standing on the other side of the hole asking my mom questions about Jesus. And I was just like, yeah, I believe that. So I really think I probably put my faith in Jesus at 5. My dad became a pastor when I was 7. So I think I grew up most of my life as a pastor's kid. So I was that kid. It's a funny story about that. The first time I was ever introduced or saw marijuana was at a pastor's conference at Glorieta, New Mexico, which all the pastors' kids were doing a conference together because all the parents were doing training, and that was the first time I'd ever seen marijuana. So that's typical pastors' kids. I actually started. So I was an athlete growing up, played soccer. Wanted to play soccer for the rest of my life, but God called me to ministry when I was 15. So I surrendered to that call at 15. was lucky enough, like you said, Ryan, to have some really close friends in high school that really helped kind of shape that direction for me. Matt Bramlett and Brian Poppy. We started walking with Jesus when we were like 16, which was crazy. And so that really kind of pushed me into the I think the direction of ministry that God was calling me to. Matt and I actually started a worship band together. We were in high school, started doing like Disciple Nows and stuff. At the end, I think it was right after our senior year, right towards the end of our senior year of high school. Did that for a few years. Those guys actually, once I quit the band in 2003 after college, because I felt like God was really calling me to preach more. And that's when those guys got really good. And like they blew up.
Yeah,
like,
they
took
did.
off. On his floor was like
They were
everywhere.
huge.
Yeah. And it is like those guys are super talented. Like realistically, like I'm a musician. I've been a worship leader since I was like 16, but it's just a different level. Those guys are like a different level of musicians. Like it's a whole different level. I feel like I've got my lane, but I really was probably holding them back from the musicianship that they accomplished after I left. Anyways, I was started doing ministry at a young age, and then started leading worship at a church when I was 19 during college, which I don't know if that was smart or not, but I did. That was during the eras too when people were like fighting over styles of music. In fact, my sister was reminding me, I saw her a few weeks ago, she was reminding me of some times when she would walk into the sanctuary on a Sunday morning and I was having it out with the pianist or the organist that morning, I'm sure over style of music. And but that's always been kind of me too. I've always been kind of I don't work well inside a box, Ryan. Like I don't like being confined inside a box. Like you got to give me a good reason why that box has the boundaries it does. And if there's not a good reason, I'm not interested in your stupid box. Like that's kind of just been my life. So doing ministry, I guess technically you're right, Ryan. I don't know when you said that since I was 16, but like, I feel like I started doing ministry when I was probably like 19.
Gotcha.
For real. I guess it's a debatable thing, but my plan was to go to Texas Tech, strangely enough, but ended up staying my plan was to go to Angelo State.
I would have still been there.
Really?
Yeah, I lived in Lubbock for
In 99?
I lived in Lubbock for 8 years.
So then I hadn't thought about that. I've literally never thought about that before. That's probably the grace that's probably why I didn't go to Tech.
Yeah.
For real. Like God probably knew that if I went to Tech, you would have hated me.
Yeah, and me.
I would have demolished you and you would have hated me. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like, cause you would have said something and I would have like, anyway, it wouldn't have been good.
Yeah, we met for the first time in March 2002.
Yeah. Which was a lot different. So anyways, my plan was to go to Tech, but I went to Angelo State for a year and then I was going to transfer, ended up getting involved in ministry at Angelo State, loved it. Met literally the most beautiful woman in the entire world. Married her.
Yeah.
Yep.
Take notes, boys.
Yep.
That's how you knew that your wife wasn't.
Wow.
Just a couple of sixes in love.
Hey, side note.
Look, man, I'm working really hard and I'm hoping to be at least a 7.5 by the time I'm 50.
I'm going downhill fast.
I think it's funny that, so Ryan, you and Pierce are, if we were doing like a IQ test, you guys would be quite a bit higher than me on the IQ test. I'm the only one that graduated from college.
I know. Very true.
The two smart guys didn't graduate. But yeah, I got my business degree from Angelo State. And we ended up staying in San Angelo. My plan was to go to seminary, but I think God kept me from my plan of where I was going to go to seminary at the time. I think if I'd gone to seminary at that point, I think I would have been that like super arrogant. I would have been really good at my job, whatever I did, and I would have known it and I would have been arrogant about it and I would have been that prick that nobody wants to be around. I think that was the path I would have been destined for had I tried to take matters in my own hand. But anyways, ended up not doing that, ended up staying here, started traveling and doing ministry, Ryan, like you did, traveling and preaching, traveling and worship, and then we planted the church later, and that's kind of been the story. I have always still loved sports, so about almost 20 years ago, when you introduced me to disc golf and I started realizing there was a culture of people that needed to hear about Jesus in the sport of disc golf, like 20 years ago, I started praying that God would like give me an opportunity to have a bigger voice for the gospel in the sport of disc golf. And today, I mean, I think I could say that prayer has been answered, is continuing to grow. I'm now partnered with a disc golf ministry called Eagles Wings, where I'm basically getting to, I'm in essence functioning as like a pastor for the disc golf pro tour. And I have an opportunity to like be a voice for Jesus and have influence in the entire disc golf world. And that's, that expands to disc golf now is in Africa, disc golf's in Japan, it's in Europe, it's now in South America, some places. So like all those places now, the believers there are connecting with us and even those other countries. So like the opportunity for influence is big. And so God definitely answered that prayer. So now that's part of what I'm doing. My heart for ministry has always been to just proclaim Jesus. I think it's part of the reason that I ended up not staying with the band, is I just recognized that even though I'll always be a worship leader, and I'll always have a heart for that, I think there's something on my heart, like a passion that's always burned in my heart to challenge Christians to think bigger and think correctly about God's calling for us as followers of Jesus. And I mean, I think one of my favorite things about my opportunities is, as a brown guy going into a lot of the churches I go into, I can say almost anything I want to say. You know what I mean? And I'm able to challenge, even like I end up going to a lot of mostly white churches, and it's fun for me because I can just make fun of white people for being white people. Well, what are they going to say to me? You know what I mean? Like, but on a serious note, like, just being able to challenge some of those boundaries that we've faced within the church in at least this part of the country for a long time, not from the perspective of like a political viewpoint, but just reminding people like who we're called to be in Christ is we're one, in spite of there's no longer Jews or Gentiles, slave or free. There's no longer Filipinos or Mexicans or half Filipino Mexican lookalikes or white or black, like none of that stuff. We're all one in Christ. And so that's kind of been my passion for a long time, is to be a voice for that. So when Ryan, you a few years ago really felt like the move for you was to come off the road, which I think it was exactly what we needed at the 456. We needed you here to be here all the time, and bringing you on, Pierce, to be a pastor as well, I think has helped that growth, because now there's both of you guys that are here on a very consistent basis. I feel like my role at the 456 as a pastor is similar, but I think God still got me out on the road as part of our ministry, even at the 456, to be a voice in this way. I really, without getting into giftedness too much, I think I really function more like a prophet than I do like a shepherd in that regards. I think that's more my, not prophet, like telling people their dreams and stuff like that. I mean, just like being able to tell people what God has said and do it unashamedly, and not really, I could literally don't care what people think about me. I just don't.
Which is crazy awesome.
I don't. I mean, it doesn't mean I'm not concerned.
I overthink it all the time.
It doesn't mean I'm not concerned when people like have thoughts for me or criticism or constructive criticism. It just means like I'm not. There have been times, Ryan, you and I have dealt with some hard things, and I hate this for you. You'll be like, I've been thinking about this for like the last few months. And I'm like, thinking about what? Like,
That's kind of you, because usually it's like, I've been thinking about this for the last 2 years. It's people are like, how long are you going to be sad about this? How long has it been? I need another year to be sad about this.
But I think it's what makes it work. And I think it's why God has brought us together in this capacity, is that we complement each other very well in our strengths. And I think that in the midst of our weaknesses that we have, we're able to not mask them, but our weaknesses don't come to the forefront because we're able to rely on each other's strengths in those ways really well. So that's kind of me, testimony ministry. I still love, I still in my mind am like an athlete. So I don't know how to like classify myself as a disc golfer. I guess I'm technically rated as a pro, but I don't really feel like I am a pro. I think my goal is to be at a place where I could be called a pro, but I don't think I'm there yet. I have wins as a pro, but I'm not calling them like real wins. These aren't like, like real big tournaments or anything. So one of my goals this year is to either win a big disc golf tournament I now get to play in the professional 40-year-old division, like the old guys. So I'd love to win one of those big tournaments, or get to, in disc golf, it's 1,000 rating, which at that point I feel like I could be called a pro, but not there yet. So my wife and I, Cammie, have 4 boys. Seth is 16, Aiden's 15, Grayson's 10, and Hayes is 7. none of them play soccer and none of them play disc golf. So it's a strange thing.
Man.
They love football. They love basketball. In fact, you had mentioned that the Chiefs and Bills game.
Yeah.
Grayson was watching it with me and Cammie, and he was like jumping up and down on the couch because he was like so stressed out about it because he's a Chiefs fan. And he's a Cowboys fan first, but he likes the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Too. So
I
love
can't
it.
believe none of them play soccer.
It's so well. They did.
Like you, Josh. Like
Yeah, that's all we
that's
played.
all you
That's
did.
all we did was play soccer. Yeah, and yeah, that was our whole life. And so Seth and Aiden started, but they just didn't really like it that much. And maybe part of it was that like I wasn't ever like pushing them in it. My parents didn't push me either. So I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Super weird. But yeah, love life with them. Love doing life with them. Love where things are at now. I have a woodworking company I do kind of on the side called Audix Woodworks. I definitely have too many irons in the fire. That's for sure. My wife and I have been, I call it slow flipping houses, where we live in a house for, 4 to however many years, 4 to 6, 7 years. And we do a remodel on the house and then sell it and then move on to the next house. And so we really like the house we're in now. So I think it'd be hard for us to move. I think it would either have to be a house like Pat and Mindy Holt's house, or it would need to be out of
that's
town.
such a great
Yeah,
house.
it's such a great house, and I wish I could afford it. But either that or out of town, like with some land, ideally on the river, because that's the dream. But I hate remodel, but I love the idea of like being able to move up in property by just doing my own labor, sweat equity in it. Which is a lot of fun. I don't think there's anything else I need to say. Is there anything I'm missing that you feel like is pertinent in my life?
You love crypto.
I do love crypto.
Yeah.
I started buying crypto because Mr. Dusty Ledbetter,
Hey, Dusty.
he never listens, so
Hey.
he's not gonna know.
Oh.
So
I take it back.
He got me into it. And,
Forget you,
actually,
man.
let's make fun of him right now because he's never gonna listen to
Dusty
it.
sucks.
Gosh, Dusty.
This will be the one episode he listens
You're
to.
terrible.
when you had a Beamer.
Yeah, he got me into crypto in January of 2021. So my goal is I have some like crypto goals. So we'll see if I can accomplish some of
That's
those
funny. That's awesome.
this year.
Me too. Don't go broke.
Don't go broke.
Yeah, make some money.
I mean, I think that one of the things we would all agree on is that we like understanding where we're at income wise as pastors doing ministry. Like we've always looked for opportunities to not be weighted down by the lack of income. I'm going to say it
Sure.
that way, where we
Yeah.
want to, like I don't feel like all pastors should have to live in like a place where they're struggling financially all the time.
Mhm.
And not everybody's that way, but I think so for us, recognizing, man, when we planted the church, we were like making literally nothing for a long time.
Yeah, for 6 or 7 years we
Doing
didn't
that,
get
we
paid.
were just like grinding, just trying to make it. And then you decided you were going to become a professional artist and grinding in that just to make it as well, So I think that, I mean, technically speaking, we're not making any money on crypto right now. But we will hopefully in the future. But just looking for opportunities, painting, woodworking. Pierce is a social media company he does
Mhm.
on the side. Like I feel like we're all kind of a little bit entrepreneurial to some degree, which has been kind of fun for us as well.
Yeah.
As a group, I'll always be an entrepreneur, I think, to some degree. So that's just going to be me. I was selling stuff at school when I was like in 3rd grade.
Yeah, you were.
Drugs.
Mhm.
Still selling stuff now. Actually, it was stickers. I was selling stickers,
Yeah,
And
sell
I was-
stickers, man.
having other people sell stickers for me, and I was paying them in stickers to sell stickers for me.
It's brilliant.
That's the way you gotta go, man.
It's got the hustle, man.
That's so smart,
It's a hustle.
especially back then.
I
Because
was-
did you order your stickers from those like book order things?
That was the first place I ordered it.
Yeah.
I was looking through one of those like Scholastic catalogs
Yeah.
or something. That was the first time I thought about it. Everybody was talking about stickers, and I saw a package of stickers for 50 cents. It was like 200 stickers. I was like,
That's what I'm saying, man.
dude, I could buy that and cut them up. And it took like a week or two for them to come in. And then when I realized I could buy stickers at like Walmart and Target, then
Yeah.
it was over, man.
Yeah.
dude.
Did that and sold like hemp
It's
stuff
so
in middle school. I sold, I didn't know you couldn't sell whitetail deer meat. So I sold whitetail deer jerky in high school until
Oh
someone
my
told me it was
God.
illegal. I made so much money on that stuff. Whoops.
Yeah.
Sorry, David.
Yeah.
For the record, this is like
Sure.
20 years ago.
Yeah, it was a long
Yeah,
time
yeah.
ago. Yeah,
20
yeah.
years ago.
And somebody told me, and I got a cease and desist order from one of those teachers. Basically, like, you got to stop that right now. It was actually Mr. Wallace.
Was it really?
Yeah, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that would
Told
make
me.
sense that he
just
was like,
like, you
and
can't
now
be doing
he's
that.
dead.
Now
See
he's
where
dead.
that got him? See where that got him?
Wow.
That's not even our
It's
dad.
the only class
I kind of feel bad for a bit.
It's the
Probably
only
shouldn't have made
class.
that joke.
No, that's terrible.
Yeah, when it's our dad, it's okay.
Yeah.
When somebody else's dad, it's not okay. It's not okay.
No, Pierce.
I'm sorry, Mr. Wallace.
It's so if
Mr.
you,
Wallace loved Jesus. I think.
I don't know.
Did he?
I don't know.
if you
He said he loved Jesus.
Yeah, there we
We'll
go.
with that.
if you listen to this podcast, and you made it all the way through, you should have gotten a lot of insight into us. I'm a dork is what we learned from mine. These guys spent a lot of time talking about their spiritual lives and their families, all really elegant and beautiful. And I'm over here talking about being a pterodactyl and metal detector and
I like that.
and
I can't wait for the videos you're gonna do, Pierce.
man.
Like
So-
still pictures of Ryan's face on a real
On a real
pterodactyl.
pterodactyl.
And I'm the teaching pastor at the Orphanage.
There were so many moments when somebody were watching Ryan there that bless his heart.
Yeah, that's right.
A lot of
Just
that.
driving past the school, being like,
Yeah.
poor kid. Poor
I
kid.
bet that kid doesn't have any
And
friends.
he licks the walls.
Oh man, I put on a really pathetic puppet show in second grade. That's another story for another time.
That is another story. What's so crazy? There's like a fine line between you and like legitimately like insane children. Like there's that. If you were to tell me that you did that and then you would go home and like play with dead squirrels, then I'd be like, me and you would have a conversation like after this. Like there was somebody that told me the other day, they were like, oh yeah, so and so had told me that their little brother would like get squirrels and take them inside and kill them over the sink. And I was like, that's
problematic.
you need to call somebody. Like,
Yeah.
But you know what else he did is he probably did the whole pterodactyl thing and did some other like then they're like, oh, it's just him being goofy. I'm like, oh, no, it's not just him being goofy, man. Like it's like there's a little level of crazy. I'm not lumping you in that category. What I'm saying is there's these fine lines with some of these kids, man. So I'm sorry. I'm not doing that.
It's okay.
I'm not doing that because there's just kids that are just having a good time.
Hey Ryan, we should put those squirrels up.
So
But if you
anyway,
could actually find metal, like
That'd be awesome.
that would be awesome.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
Let's test it.
I'm sure
him by his
I'm sure
feet.
that there have been some people.
we'll get that on. That'll be on Instagram.
I'm sure that there have been some people who thought I was crazy.
No, but you're not. That we're clear. What was that face?
See, I think what you're alluding to is like that there's this perspective of what normalcy looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think it's a tragedy that we often put a standard on kids that you can't know yet.
Yeah.
Oh no, and
Yeah.
exactly. And you
I'll
were just
say-
being yourself, having a good time.
I'll
man.
say this. The way my brain works, for me to be as high functioning as I am is a real blessing.
I mean, if we're being completely honest, you are an artist.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
It
Yeah.
makes total sense
Yeah.
that you are a very intelligent
It's
artist.
par for the
Yeah,
course.
and like, and you to use your like, you were constantly using your imagination and constantly like outwardly expressing that.
Yeah.
And
Can
people
we
just,
get a pterodactyl painting coming up?
Oh,
That would be dope.
yes.
perched on top of your memory castle.
Yes.
You got to paint it.
It's
What you should
it's
do.
a home with glass walls. There is a sunken living room. There's a kitchen with refrigerator.
What you know
magnets.
how people will have like a painting, and then over that painting they'll do like something that'll only show up in black light, like over it. What you should do is do like this really, really intense, like brutal pterodactyl. Then over that, do you in a grass nest that can only be seen when you turn the lights off.
Black light.
Yeah. Oh man.
That'd be awesome.
I used to pretend I was He-Man when the gate would stick.
But I think a lot of people pretended they were He-Man.
Yeah, but I mean, that was the
It's pretty
I had
convinced.